Alrighty, I think we are live. Let's make sure that is actually the case. Alright, we are definitely live on YouTube, and how about Rumble? Let's find out. Alright, yes. We are definitely live cross-platform, it looks like. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and pick up where we left off after the rather unexpected interruptions that occurred last time, with our reading from Murray Rothbard's The Anatomy of the State. Having used force and violence to obtain its revenue, the state generally goes on to regulate and dictate the other actions of its individual subjects. One would think that simple observation of all states through history and over the globe would be proof enough of this assertion. But the miasma of myth has lain so long over state activity that elaboration is necessary. Part 2. What the state is. Man is born naked into the world and needing to use his mind to learn how to take the resources given him by nature and to transform them, i.e., by investment in capital, into shapes and forms and places where the resources can be used for the satisfaction of his wants and the advancement of his standard of living. The only way by which man can do this is by the use of his mind and energy to transform resources, production, and to exchange these products for products created by others. Man has found that through the process of voluntary mutual exchange, the productivity and hence the living standards of all participants in exchange may increase enormously. The only natural course for man to survive and to attain wealth, therefore, is by using his mind and energy to engage in the production and exchange process. He does this first by finding natural resources and then by transforming them, by mixing his labor with them, as Locke put it, to make them his individual property, and then by exchanging this property for the similarly obtained property of others. The social path dictated by the requirements of man's nature, therefore, is the path of property rights and the free market, of gift or exchange of such rights. Excuse me. Through this path, men have learned how to avoid the jungle methods of fighting over scarce resources so that A can only acquire them at the expense of B, and instead to multiply those resources enormously in peaceful and harmonious production and exchange. Well, that sounds kind of familiar. The great German sociologist, and I'm going to butcher this name, Franz Oppenheimer, I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced, pointed out that there are two mutually exclusive ways of acquiring wealth. One, the above way of production and exchange, he called the economic means. The other way is simpler in that it does not require productivity. It is the way of seizure of another's goods or services by the use of force and violence. This is the method of one-sided confiscation, of theft of the property of others. This is the method which Oppenheimer termed the political means to wealth. It should be clear that the peaceful use of one's reason and energy in production is the natural path for man. The means for his survival and prosperity on this earth. It should be equally clear that the coercive, exploitative means, in contrary to natural law, it is parasitic. For instead of adding to production, it subtracts from it. The political means siphons production off to a parasitic and destructive individual or group, and this siphoning not only subtracts from the number producing, it also lowers the producer's incentive to produce beyond his own subsistence. In the long run, the robber destroys his own subsistence by dwindling or eliminating the source of his own supply. But not only that, even in the short run, the predator is acting contrary to his own true nature as a man. We are now in a position to answer more fully the question, what is the state? The state, in the words of Oppenheimer, is the, quote, organization of the political means, unquote. It is the systematization, long word, of the predatory process over a given territory. Point number 4, which I will now read. There are two fundamentally opposed means whereby man, requiring sustenance, is impelled to obtain the necessary means for satisfying his desires. These are work and robbery, one's own labor and the forceful appropriation of the labor of others. I propose in the following discussion to call one's own labor and the equivalent exchange of one's own labor for the labor of others the economic means for the satisfaction of needs, while the unrequited appropriation of the labor of others will be called the political means. The state is an organization of the political means. No state, therefore, can come into being until the economic means has created a definite number of objects for the satisfaction of needs, which objects may be taken away or appropriated by warlike robbery. Franz Oppenheimer, The State. New York, Vanguard Press, 1926, pages 24 to 27. End of asterisk. For crime, at best, is sporadic and uncertain. The parasitism is ephemeral, and the coercive parasitic lifeline may be cut off at any time by the resistance of the victims. Wow. That kind of sounds like what happens if someone kicks in my door and finds me on the other side of it with a loaded shotgun. Amazing. The state provides a legal, orderly, systematic channel for the predation of private property. It renders certain, secure, and relatively peaceful the lifeline of the parasitic caste in society. Point number 5, which I will now read. Albert J. Nock wrote vividly that, quote, the state claims and exercises the monopoly of crime. It forbids private murder, but itself organizes murder on a colossal scale. It punishes private theft, but itself lays unscrupulous hands on anything it wants. whether the property of citizen or of alien, unquote. Knock. On Doing the Right Thing and Other Essays. New York, Harper and Brothers, 1928, page 143. Quoted in Jack Schwartzman, Albert J. Nock, a Superfluous Man, Faith and Freedom, December 1953, page 11. End of asterisk. Since production must always precede predation, the free market is anterior to the state. The state has never been created by a social contract. Oh God, do I hate this term. Oh God, there is no social contract. There never was. It's a myth. Get over it. It has always been born in conquest and exploitation. The classic paradigm was a conquering tribe pausing in its time-honored method of looting and murdering a conquered tribe to realize that the time span of plunder would be longer and more secure, and the situation more pleasant if the conquered tribe were allowed to live and produce, with the conquerors settling among them as rulers, exacting a steady annual tribute. Asterisk, which I will now read. Quote, what then is the state as a sociological concept? The state, completely in its genesis, is a social institution forced by a victorious group of men on a defeated group, with the sole purpose of regulating the dominion of the victorious group of men on a defeated group and securing itself against revolt from within and attacks from abroad. Teleologically, this dominion had no other purpose than the economic exploitation of the vanquished by the victors. End of quote. Oppenheimer. Page 15. End of asterisk. One method of the birth of a state may be illustrated as follows. In the hills of southern, I'm going to butcher this, Ruritania, quote unquote, a bandit group manages to obtain physical control over the territory, and finally the bandit chieftain proclaims himself, quote, king of the sovereign and independent government of South Ruritania, unquote. And if he and his men have the force to maintain this rule for a while, lo and behold, a new state, quote, and the former bandit leaders have been transformed into the law. Wow, isn't that just cute? Isn't that just special? Wow. And I will leave it there. We will pick up at point 3 on the next one. Until then, as always, live free or die trying.